Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Now, quite often when I produce resin pieces of work, I always get a few comments from people suggesting that the use of resin isn't exactly environmentally friendly, especially due to all the waste it produces, which is fair enough. Everybody has a right to their own opinion. Now, this week, to counter all of that, we're going to produce a resin ball with absolutely zero waste. And we're going to do it with this little friend of mine. So stick around and we'll show you how. Okay, so we're about ready to start. Now let's explain a few things. You create waste when making something because you are removing material in order to reveal a shape inside. Now if we can cut out that revealing a shape step, then we won't have any waste. And the way we're going to do it is by manipulating the resin halfway through its drying process. Now it reaches a point where it becomes flexible but still firm enough to touch. Obviously if you go in too early, it's just going to run through your fingers and be no good. If you go too late, then it's going to be hard and brittle. So we're going to pour resin into this mold, wait for it to get to a certain flexibility and firmness, and then transfer it onto our mold, which is going to be Mr. Space Hopper. By the way, I have actually just ordered another Space Hopper because I broke the first one. Don't ask me how, it's a little embarrassing. Anyway, right, so let's get started. This, by the way, is the mold I used the other day for the Sequoia platter. Before we do get started, in order to calculate the amount of resin we're going to need to get this to the depth required, it's a simple calculation. It's pi multiplied by the radius squared times the height that you want it. And that calculation, which I've already done, has given us 600 millilitres or 600 cubic centimetres. Okay, so we need 600 cubic centimetres of resin, and the resin we're going to be using is the Let's Resin casting resin. We don't need the deep pour because it's only going to be 6 millimeters thick or something like that. Now, this is mixed at 50-50, so we need 300 mils of each one. Gloves. There we go. Okay, that's our 600 ml, so let's give it a quick mix. Okay, now we're not going to dye this whole lot the same colour, so I'm just going to separate it into two other pots as well, and that'll give us 3 different colours that we're going to use to make this bowl. Now, the one thing we have learned from using this casting resin in the past is that the colour separation is pretty good. So we're going to use that to our advantage and hopefully produce something quite nice. Okay, when it comes to mixing colours, I am generally not the best person in the world for this. So excuse me if I do this wrong, or excuse me again if it looks terrible at the end, but we're giving it a go. Feel free to have a go yourself, or leave in the suggestions below what you would have done instead. So this first one, the main background colour is going to be black. So I'm using an opaque Let's Resin colour. And then on top of that, we're using the black mica powder as well. This will give it a nice sparkle. In the smaller pot, we're putting gold and dark blue. These are both mica powders, and again from Let's Resin. Right, we'll mix these together. Okay, now we have introduced an awful lot of air bubbles into these at the moment, so I'm going to allow them to sit to one side while we ready the mould that we're going to be pouring into. Okay, now we've got this board the mould is going to sit on top of this. But before I put it on, I want to make sure that this is nice and level. The last thing we want is the resin to be uneven in the mould. Okay, so we need perfect. Right, the other way. Okay, excellent. Right, that's nice and level. So we can put our mould on there, and as soon as the resin has degassed itself a little bit, we can start to pour. Okay, that's had enough time for the bubbles to reach the surface. We are going to be introducing more bubbles when we pour, but we can combat that with a blowtorch. So this is the main base, so I'll pour in a lot of this black so it completely covers the bottom. That's the black in, and it's all over the bottom.
I thought you would say get out.
No, I would never say that to you, darling. I'm thinking it.
Your face is saying it.
Okay, so that's the base in. Now I'm a little bit scared about the next bit, so what I'm trying to do, or what I think I'm going to try and do, is pour some gold right into the middle, and then some blue on top of it, and then gold again, and then blue again, until we've used it all up. Now this is going to create a kind of a radial effect in the middle, and then using a fork or something like that, I'm going to try and spread it out towards the edges. It may look horrible, it may look nice, but there's only one way to find out. Ignore the splashes. This is fun. I really like that. There's a bit of black left. Should I put some black right in the middle? Okay, now I did have intentions of creating some sort of pattern using this, but I really like that. Now I did get that gold splash in this corner. I wonder if I can pick it out. Pick it out a little bit, if I can just swirl it around. And it'll virtually disappear. It's just distorted that edge. That's fine, that's nice. Right, I think we just leave it at that, and whatever happens, happens. You can see some air bubbles on the top, but periodically I'm just going to go over with my blowtorch. And pop them like that. And I'll see you in a few hours' time when we're taking this out and putting it onto the space hopper. I've never said that before. All right, good morning everybody. It's 6:30 in the morning. I've just got up. I've noticed that this is starting to set an awful lot faster than I'm used to. I think it's probably because of the quite warm temperatures we're having at the moment. Now, last night, it was starting to, the pattern we've made was starting to shrink into the middle, so in an act of desperation I started to try and drag it out, otherwise it just being like a dot. So anyway, we're going to take this out. I'll quickly fix my original space hopper with a bit of CA glue and look like it's managing to hold some pressure. So I'm going to take this out of the mould. Normally this would be a lot more floppy, but hopefully we can get it on the mould and start to let it form itself over the shape of the ball. Now if this doesn't work, if I've left this too long, then I shall leave this as a platter or something like that, and then quickly make another one. Right, I think I'm going to give it a bit of time, just leave it in this position and see if it naturally kind of folds itself over like it would have done normally. I love trying things for the first time. Always something surprising it. Okay, it's now 7:10. The other one wasn't working. I tried to apply a bit of heat. It wasn't conforming correctly, so I've obviously let it get too hard. So I've moved that into the kitchen so it can dry perfectly flat, and now we'll have another go. Right, so this time I've used the same colours, but I've mixed a little bit less. I've only used about 520 millilitres of resin, and I've made up more blue and gold as opposed to the black, and we're going to try a slightly different pattern this time. I think the main problem with the last pattern is because I put the black in first and then added the gold and blue to the centre. When it was all done, it started to push everything back in. So if we start more to the edges, then the pattern should hopefully remain. That's my thought anyway. This could get messy. I think that blue's too weak. Let's put a bit more blue in there. Right, there we go. Right, I'm in all day, so I should keep a very, very close eye on this. So I'll be able to move it just at the right point. Okay, I've been keeping a good eye on this throughout the day, and the edges are starting to pull away nice and cleanly now, which makes me believe that now is the time to get this moved over. Now, it's a tricky maneuver. It is holding its shape, but I still have to get it out and positioned on the top of this ball. So do I just flip the mold over and then try and work it free, or do I take it out the mold and then put it on by hand? Turning the mold over certainly sounds to me like the more sensible way to do this. As you can see, it's nice and flexible, there's nice and lots of movement there, so what's the worst that can happen? I'll just try it again. Right, I'll try and carefully demold it. It's coming. The worst thing that could happen, technically, I suppose, is that we tear it. But I don't think that's a possibility. Then again, I don't know, I've never done this before. Okay, right, we've got the mold inside out. I think that's a good start. Right, it's hanging onto this corner here. Why are you hanging? Oh, it's not quite cured enough on that corner. committed now. There you go, there you go. Oh, come on. Okay, we've lost a little bit of resin, but it's okay. Right, wipe some sweat off my brow. Make sure I've got that nice and central. We can start working this into shape. I must admit, in my head, this was fitting easier. In my mind, it would just flop over and take the new shape. Maybe I've waited too long again. Okay, I think what I'm going to do is force the action. I'm going to tape the corners. How does that sound? Let's give it a go. Or I'll just step back there for a second, and the shape it's producing is actually quite nice. It's quite organic. What do we think? Right, we've got a nice curve in the middle, which is what I need, because after this we're going to make a base for it. So as long as I've got that nice curve in the middle, then I guess the outside can be as elaborate as it wants. Okay, all right, let's let nature take its course. We'll leave it exactly as it is. It seems to be nice and central. It's a very, very warm day outside, so a bit of heat of that might make it move a little more. Right, let's just leave it at that. I don't want to run the risk of damaging this or tearing it. We've done pretty well so far for a second go. So, okay, let's leave it like that. Okay, so there we go. That's where we're at so far. That's our resin bowl. Now we're going to make a stand for this, and I'm going to use a nice little piece of African walnut to make it out of. It just needs to have a shallow dip in the top, just enough for that to sit and be settled in. I am going to put some small rubber feet on here just to help stop it slide around. Okay, so we're going to mount this with a worm screw, and now the worm screw is going to go deeper than we want the actual bowl to be. So when we are creating the design on the sides and on the base, we are going to have to allow for about 1/2 inch, maybe a little bit less, to be taken off to get rid of the hole, so we can get a nice little scoop in there which matches the bowl itself. Okay, we're on the lathe using tailstock at the start. It's not doing an awful lot there, but it just gives that extra bit of safety. We don't really need it with this bit blank being so small, but I would much prefer to have it there and not need it, rather than need it and it not be there. So we can start turning at just over 1000 RPM. I've sharpened up, I've got my face mask and face shield ready. So we'll start turning. We're going to even up the sides first of all, and then start creating a shape. Now this is going to be totally different to a bowl, because it's going to be a stand, so the top is generally going to be a little bit wider than the base, and probably more of a kind of curve in the middle. But we'll see as we go along. This shouldn't take long. like that. This top edge isn't going to be this wide because, as I mentioned at the start, we are going to have to take this down a little bit to be able to get that curve in to match the bowl and to get rid of the worm screw hole that we've already drilled into this piece. So what will that do us? I think this base here needs to be a little bit deeper. So I'll do that, then quickly put a recess in, and then we can sand. Okay, that'll do it. Okay, now I'm just going to quickly sand just the base because I may have to do some tweaking on the designs on this side once we've turned this around. So I'll do that off camera, but I'll bring you back as soon as it's done. Okay, we're back turned around. Well, the bottom is nicely finished. I'm going to take this down probably about 1/4 of an inch until we start to lose the worm screw hole, and then I'll start putting in a gentle curve, and we'll keep on bringing up the bowl next to it to see what it'll take to get it to fit perfectly. Okay, we've cleared the first worm screw hole, so let's just give it a little test fit. That's actually not too bad right off the bat. I think we've got the angle just about right. So I've got this small edge on here, so I think I'll take that away, keeping that same kind of depth, and I think that we're about there. Right, I'm going to get this sanded and finished. I'll let you watch a bit of it, and I shall bring you back at the end when we're putting it all together. Okay, African walnut really is nice to sand. Really quite easy, so I'll just give it a bit of a clean over with an isopropyl. It does have a lovely chatoyance, this wood. You can tell it's like part of the mahogany family in the way it shines. A bit like a sapele. Okay, that's all nice and dry now, so on again with an abrasive paste just to help bring up our surface finish to about 1000 grit. I sanded up to 400 on this piece. I'll put my face mask back on just so I don't get any of this grit in my eyes. Again, cleaning off any excess grit with isopropyl. It's a beautiful dark line through this mahogany, sorry, through this walnut. Okay, now for a couple of coats of shine juice, we're going to apply this while the piece is spinning. So again, my face mask is going to be on to protect my eyes. I'll do the first coat, and then I'll do the second coat off camera. Then I'll bring you back and we'll take a look at what we've done. let's take a look. Oh, there we go. A resin bowl with stand, made with no waste whatsoever. Now with any project that you're attempting for the first time, there's always going to be iterations needed to improve the process. The first time we tried it, we ended up making a beautiful placemat or something like that for the centre of a table, which actually, I really love the design on this. When you put a light behind this, it really is quite fantastic. So I may experiment more with this as well as with the bowl. But even between the two, we learnt an awful lot. Now when I placed the resin onto the ball, hoping that it would form over, I think that might have been a little bit naive of me. I think the better way to get a form that I wanted was to put this into something as opposed to resting it over the top. Now I don't have anything of a suitable kind of a pan shape that I could have used, but I will be looking for something else. Now I do have smaller things I could use, so I might do a few experiments with smaller pieces of resin to get this effect, or to get this shape, without having to rely on it being kind of waved at the corners. But I don't mind that, I quite like that. It certainly has a lot of appeal. I put small rubber feet on there just so to help keep it nice and steady in the base. In terms of the resin, we have better separation on this one than we do on this one, and the only real difference between the two is that I'd let the resin rest for longer on the first version than I did the second. I was kind of rushing because I messed up the first version. So that is where, or the reason why I think we've got a lot of these kind of striation lines going away, which in itself is actually quite nice, but I would have liked to see more of this kind of almost like a tiger style pattern stay in it. But again, this is just practice, this is just testing, this is just doing something for the first time. So anyway, there we go. If you fancy having a go yourself, please let me know how you get on. If you want to use the resin products, then there's always links in my description, and you can get a discount code off them as well. Remember, you don't need the deep pour resin, just the normal casting resin is absolutely fine. Anyway, apart from that, thank you very much indeed for watching. If you've enjoyed it, I would really appreciate a like and subscribe and all the usual kind of things, and if you could share it as well, then that would be absolutely incredible. Don't forget, if you do leave a comment, then you are going to be entered into the giveaway the next time we do one. Apart from that, thank you very much indeed for watching. I'll see you next time. Thank you.